Good evening, everybody. You are very welcome to our LinkedIn event here this evening, where we are very literally learning from our guest experts, Sahar, Yasir, and Serena. My name is Olivia, and I work within the marketing team here at Lokia Locum. So some of you may be familiar with seeing my emails and messages coming through, maybe the app. But thank you so much for joining us here this Wednesday evening. This event is going to be really insightful, informative, and please do feel free to share your comments and any questions in the comment section on LinkedIn. Sort of the running order will be we've got 45 minutes to cover all of our insights from the team, and then we'll have a dedicated Q&A then towards the last 15 minutes of our hour. So please feel free to work away at sending in any questions that may come up during the conversation, and we'll make sure to answer them towards the end of the event. So just sort of kick off tonight, if anybody is new to Lokia Locum, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to who we are, what we do. And so Lokia Locum is an online platform and an app that connects locum pharmacy workers with employers across the UK. We actually have got 44,000 locums who are currently signed up to Lokia Locum. So you're definitely in good company. And there's definitely no shortage of shifts, as we have over 100,000 shifts posted by 8,000 employers across the UK every week. So those numbers may seem very overwhelming, but within the app, you are able to really personalize it and sort of find shifts that are available in your area, work with companies that you want to work with. If you are a newly qualified pharmacist or soon to be, I know the results are coming out next Tuesday, so fingers crossed. I'm sure you'll all be amazing. But whenever you are a newly qualified pharmacist, you may be wondering, is locum right for me? We definitely have a lot of newly qualified who join Lokia Locum to really gain experience in community pharmacy. So we specialise in the community. We work with Boots, Deleuze, Superdrug, a lot of independents in also. So it's a really great opportunity for you to put the skills and knowledge that you've learned during your training year into practice then as a locum too. So whenever you do sign up to Lokia Locum, you can download the app via Google Play or the App Store. But you also join a locum community. We have a fantastic community of locums who really share tips, insights, and advice with newly qualified people who maybe have been locuming for 20, 30 years. So there's a real wealth of knowledge and support within the community group. So there's a lot of support whenever you maybe need a little bit of help or anything. But really, if you have also any questions about like getting started with Lokia Locum, you can always reach out to us after the event on social media or via our website. And it'll probably be me going back to you. So we're definitely more than happy to help. But enough from me. I'm going to pass over to each of our speakers just to give a little bit of a quick introduction to themselves, so then we can get started then with our conversation then this evening. So maybe Sahar, do you want to kick us off tonight?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So hi everyone, my name's Sahar Shahid. Really excited to be on here. So thank you, Lokia Locum, for asking me to speak. So I qualified in 2012. So been qualified for a while, feel quite old. And my background has mainly been in community pharmacy as a store manager with a big corporate. I am also a mum to two beautiful little girls who are 9 and 5. So when I became a mum, I knew that I wanted more flexibility. So I wanted to leave the whole kind of 9 to 5 community pharmacy life, and I set up my own consultancy business, helping other pharmacy businesses, get ready for inspections and, improve their standards or set up their pharmacy. And I'm just a week away from launching my own online pharmacy. So very varied career. And that's what I currently do just now, run my consultancy business and run the online pharmacy as well. And I'm also a board member for the MP representing Scotland. No, I almost forgot about that.
Amazing, Sahar. Yasir, do you want to give a wee quick intro?
Yeah, so my name's Yasser. I'm honorary senior lecturer in pharmacy practice. Very recently became honorary. So I was a senior lecturer for the past 5 years. But I stepped back from that role just to focus on my business, which is Micropharm. Micropharm, it's a bit of a split because there's a whole social media side to it where I'm just trying to educate people about the pharmacy profession. But at the same time, we train trainee pharmacists. And just this month, we've surpassed training 5,000 trainee pharmacists. Alongside that, I still work in the NHS. So I'm an advanced specialist pharmacist, and I manage patients with interstitial lung disease. I don't know how that happens, but I always end up getting these like rare conditions. So previously I used to manage patients with like necrotizing otitis externa, which you've probably never seen a patient with necrotizing otitis externa. But it's a really exciting role because you end up learning a lot about conditions that not many people know about. But yeah, that's what keeps me busy during the week.
Very busy indeed, Yusir. And last but not least, Serena.
Hey everyone, my name is Serena. I've been a pharmacist for over 10 years now, coming up to 11. I've got several different roles, bit of an entrepreneur. So my main employed role, I'm actually the pharmacy director and head pharmacist for Harrods Pharmacy in Knightsbridge in London. I specialise in growing multi-million-pound businesses in healthcare. I also do a lot of independent prescribing work and private consultancy work, and I also have my own aesthetics clinic, which is called House of Health and Aesthetics. Oh, in addition to like social media bits and bobs too.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm sure everyone can appreciate this is going to be a really good conversation this evening. We've got such diverse backgrounds from all of our speakers who do incredible things within the pharmacy industry. So I hope you all are inspired by our wonderful panel tonight. So I'm going to take you right back to the very beginning. So in school, like, what made you passionate about initially starting your career in pharmacy? Sahar, do you want to be share your thoughts?
I never wanted to be a pharmacist. I actually wanted to be a dentist, and got a conditional offer at university. And at the time of my exams, I suddenly lost my grandparents, both of them, in a very short space of time. So I didn't make that condition. So pharmacy was my backup. And I honestly remember the first year or 2 years, absolutely just hating it because it was broad science. It wasn't, what is a pharmacist? But actually when I got into third and fourth year, when it kind of got more detailed into, the pharmacy world, I absolutely fell in love with it and never have looked back. And all I say to myself now is why on earth do I want to be a dentist and look at people's mouths? But yeah, honestly, so everything happens for a reason. And I'm just so glad that it worked out this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure some other people might have been interested in another healthcare space too, so that they're so interesting that you sort of found your passion within pharmacy. Serena, what about you?
Mine actually sounds like, it's going to sound like a really cheesy story, but I actually wanted to be a pharmacist. So I decided quite young, actually. So none of my parents are pharmacists, no one in my family, maybe one or two extended cousins were pharmacists who I didn't know about at the time. But I was quite young, I was about 14. And it's a really cheesy story, so you can laugh. We at home, we used to always have this medicine cupboard, as you do. And then you've got your Calpol and your Nurofen, etc. And I always used to wonder, how do you make medicine? And then I just randomly decided one day, I'm going to be a pharmacist, but because I want to make medicine. That's what I said to my mum. And then I got a bit older and I realized, okay, there's loads of pharmaceutical industries to make the medicine, so I want to be a pharmacist. And I wanted to know how to fix the problem. My dad came home from work and my dad's in finance, so no science in my immediate family whatsoever. And I just went, I want to be a pharmacist. And then when I went to do my A-levels, I remember, obviously I had braces when I was younger, and then I learned a bit more about dentistry. So halfway through my A-levels, I said, do you know what? If I get really good grades, I'm going to change over to dentistry because I wanted to do either orthodontics or facial aesthetics. And then fast forward, I didn't really apply for dentistry. I stuck to pharmacy. And then now, a decade down the line, I'm actually doing facial aesthetics. So I've got no regrets whatsoever.
Absolutely. You came full circle. That's incredible.
In the end, just a different way.
Yeah. And what about you, Yusir?
Yeah, so I'm really glad with Sahar's response because mine again wasn't as passionate as everyone else. So when I was in year 10, I was look, I want to really take you back now. When I was in year 10, I was predicted to only get 3 GCSEs, and this is with me. I wasn't a terrible student. I was just terrible at education, so I thought. So I was predicted to get 3 GCSEs, and then I really tried to focus in my final year, so that's year 11, and I ended up getting 10 GCSEs, but I didn't smash it. There was only one subject I smashed it in, and that was science. So I got an A in science, but I was terrible at everything else. By terrible, I mean C's. So I was like, I have to pursue something science related. So I picked science related subjects during my A levels, and I've got 10 pharmacists in my family, like including cousins. So my brother's a pharmacist as well. So I never knew anything else, and I was like, if I wanted to go, I enjoyed science. I wanted to go into something in healthcare, and I only really knew about pharmacy. So it was like the only option I thought of, like that made sense for me, because I knew about it. That was literally it. So I was like, I knew about it. If I'm ever struggling, my brother's there to help me. So I was like, let me do it for those reasons. But I fell in love with it afterwards, and that was probably like, I enjoyed my time at university, but I would say that I was really passionate about it once I became qualified. And I started working in practice. In particular, when I started working in a hospital, I really started to enjoy it. So, not so much passionate. I was not very passionate at the start. Just sort of knew I was going in that direction, but very passionate about it now.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's definitely something that I have noticed by going to a lot of the university careers fair, is that sometimes a lot of people will have maybe like their parents or brothers and sisters and family members are pharmacists. And so whenever like it's in your family, like, and you hear about it, and the students that you be speaking to are extremely engaged and passionate about, just continuing on that that role, I think it's incredible. So if we fast forward, I very cleverly missed out the 4 years that you're actually in university, and then went straight to your training year here. So what area did you guys all work in then whenever you were on like your placement then? Sarina, do you want to start us off this time?
Yeah, I did mine in community pharmacy. I think from when I was quite young and I said I want to be a pharmacist, I did my work experience in community. Then when I was doing my A levels, I had a part-time job in a community pharmacy. I was a Boots girl from like 15, from work experience all the way through to like 18, 19 as my part-time job. And then even when I went to uni, I carried on having like part-time pharmacy jobs. So it made sense to me to just do community. I felt like I know community. I want to be a community pharmacist.
Yeah, brilliant. Yusir, what about you?
Yeah, so mine was in community as well. So I went into community pharmacy, and very similar reasons to Sarina. I never really knew much. None of like the family members that are pharmacists, none of them have ever gone into anything but community. So I was like, I don't know what hospital's like. Do I really want to work in a hospital all day? That's what I initially used to think. So I was like, it has to be community pharmacy. So I never really thought about hospital until later on.
Yeah, very good. And Sahara, what about you?
So I did my pre-reg in community pharmacy. I was started to get up with Boots while I was at university. Did a few placements during university in hospital, and it just wasn't for me. I've seen a lot of patients that were dying, that were very, very sick, so that really kind of put me off. Probably didn't help that actually our placement was in a cancer hospital. But I then went into do pre-reg in community pharmacy with Boots, and at the time of my pre-reg, it was the busiest pharmacy in Scotland. So there was a queue of like 15, 20 people all the time. There was never not a queue. And people used to say to me, if you can handle work in there, you'll be able to work anywhere as a pharmacist. So yeah, very grateful actually for working in such a very tough environment with a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that was a real baptism of fire then, definitely in that pharmacy. Good to set you up. So our next step then in your career journey then, so when you graduated, did you stay within community pharmacy, or what career path did you then explore? Sahar, where did you head to?
So I ended up going straight into store management because of my experience working in that very, very big business and busy pharmacy. And I literally just worked my way up the corporate ladder because that's what you're told to do, isn't it? So worked my way up the corporate ladder and moved from one pharmacy to the next into bigger businesses and helped support and grow those businesses. So that's what I did for the first kind of 8-9 years. Had 2 maternities in between before I decided to walk away from community pharmacy. I don't know if you want me to tell you what I did after that, or is that one of the next questions?
No, feel free. No, absolutely.
So yeah, went on my second maternity, and I just knew that I didn't want to go back to community pharmacy with, the pressures. COVID had just happened as well. And we were in lockdown, and I actually took a year off, didn't do anything after I had my baby, and then I did a bit of part-time work for NHS primary care. I was the lead pharmacist for care homes in Renfrewshire, so covering about 25 care homes and all the patients and doing all their medication reviews. So I did that remotely. So that was Shannon's first time working remotely after always being in community pharmacy. And then from there, I also, alongside that role, set up my consultancy. And then a year or so later, then set up my own online pharmacy.
Yeah, so that's absolutely such an incredible journey that you've had. It's amazing. Yusira, what about you? Where did you start off? And
so I thought I was going to stay in community, and then I saw a job opportunity for the University Hospitals of Leicester, and it was a junior pharmacist role. And what tended to happen, so I was quite enjoying community pharmacy, but everyone who was working in the hospital was talking about how amazing their time is during their training year. And the reason is because you're essentially not treated like an extra pair of hands. You're given protected study time. You're given a really comprehensive training year, lots of training throughout the year that's included in your foundation training year. So I was like, this sounds great, and I feel like I'd learn a lot in that environment. So I thought, let me try, but it was such a tough interview, and it was a week before the GPHC exam. So I can remember sitting in the interview room and someone telling me, I've got 12 years of experience, and someone saying to me, I've got 15 years of experience. So I was like, I'm probably not gonna get this job, but let me go for it. So I remember in that interview, they actually do a role play with a patient, and you all have to stand around that patient and you have to shout how you're going to manage this septic patient, and there's people assessing you, and it was just a terribly interview, if the loudest person wins sort of thing. So I remember walking away from that interview thinking that was the worst thing possible. I'm definitely not getting that job, and then I got a call to say I got the position. So that really changed the trajectory of where I work. So I started as a junior pharmacist then, and have been working within a hospital since then, so for about 7 years now.
Yeah, so you were definitely the loudest person then shouting at the patient, were you?
I'll try my best.
Serena, what about you? Where did you start your sort of pharmacy career after you were qualified?
Oh, mine, do you know what? I thought when I was younger, I was a community girl through and through. And even when I got to 3rd, 4th year uni, when you're doing your final year project, etc., throughout my whole time at uni, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do pharmacy practice project, pharmacy practice. And last minute, I changed to clinical. And I did it in neuroscience. And everyone was like, oh my God, you're such a geek. I knew you'd change. And then the same kind of thing happened in my pre-reg. So I was a community pre-reg. And then my best friend at the time, she was a hospital pre-reg, and she kept saying to me, you belong in hospital because you're so clinical. So I did my 2-week crossover for my pre-reg at the Royal Brompton Hospital in Chelsea. And that's a cardio and respiratory specialist hospital. And after those 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God, I want to be a cardio pharmacist and a specialist, etc. So then I sort of stayed in touch with the Brompton. and I applied for a bank role. And I remember going for, no, I applied, I think it was either a band 6 or a bank, one of the two. But I just remember going for the interview thinking, oh my God, am I really going to change the hospital, etc.? What are you doing? There's so many things out there, la, 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 la. And then I remember when I was like sort of revising for the interview, because obviously I'm not used to a hugely clinical environment. I don't know why, I just kept remembering an omeprazole clopidogrel interaction. And that actually came up in my interview question and I got the job. So despite it being a bank role, they're like, oh yeah, you were great. Because there was all these things saying it's so hard to go from community to hospital. So even though I got the bank position, I did a few shifts, but I didn't do that many. And then after my pre-reg year, I was actually offered a relief pharmacist role in community pharmacy for the company I was working for. But very controversially, I didn't take the role because I didn't get the area I wanted. And I've definitely been a business girl from day through and through, because I negotiated and said, well, no, what you're offering me is awful. And if I locum 3 days a week, I can make more money, etc. And I literally threw it back at them and I was like, you told me I'm the top pre-reg in the whole company, etc. And then I actually left, and that caused a few problems because the CEO said to my tutor, who's like very senior in pharmacy, oh, we needed her on board. And he goes, well, I taught her, I have to teach her to negotiate. So if she's negotiating, I've clearly done my job correctly. So anyway, I left and I locumed, but very quickly within like a month or two of locuming, so I was community locuming and then I was a bit of hospital bank work. I actually started a project with the NHS 111 service. So I was actually the first pharmacist to start with the 111 service 11 years ago. It was a group of 10 of us, and it was through an agency, went through really extensive training. And the whole point was to prove that you can have pharmacists working in the 111 service. Now there's hundreds of roles for pharmacists and other allied healthcare professionals, but I was one of the first ones to prove some of the queries that were coming through, because I did both NHS 111 and out of hours. So I was sometimes working till midnight just to prove that, you know, there's so many other opportunities out there and to grow pharmacy as a profession. And whilst I was doing that, I actually got a call back from my old employer, and they offered me a pharmacy manager position at 5 different pharmacies within their company. And I didn't realize at the time the CEO was in the car at the same time as the regional manager who I knew. And he was like, oh, Serena, what are you up to, etc. And I told him about all the locuming work, bank work, NHS 111 work. And luckily I didn't say anything bad, because the CEO jumped on and said, hey, Serena, it's their name. You know, we're really impressed as usual. You know, you're always thinking outside the box. Would you consider coming back? So they offered me 5 different potential scores. I don't know why I seemed to take the worst one, the most challenging one, probably because it was closest to home. But my agreement was, I'm not going to take a permanent role with you guys for at least 8 weeks. I want to be paid as a locum. Again, the negotiation thing kept coming up. I want to be paid as a locum because obviously it was actually a failing pharmacy. And it was a case of, you know, offering all these bonuses and incentives. But I was like, it's a failing pharmacy, like it's about to close. So I agreed that I will stay paid as a locum, but I'll still be pharmacy manager. And then eventually I did move over permanently. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I worked in the legal regulatory superintendent office for that company 1 or 2 days a week. So my career's been accelerated quite quickly. But that's because I think, because I've been in community since 15, 16, when I got to pre-reg level like 23, 24, I had a lot of exposure to it. So then I was doing pharmacy manager plus legal regulatory and superintendent office work. So that was all, you know, dispensing errors, patient safety for the whole company. And then straight after that, I couldn't do both. So as much as I grew that first pharmacy, I grew within 1 year, I grew it by 11%. So essentially it didn't fail, it didn't close, and all the staff got a bonus for the first time, which was great. And then I actually went full-time into an office role for that same company, basically in 2016, I believe, for the pharmacy quality payment scheme service. And that was a £7.5 million we generated in 18 months. So I did full-time project management. So I looked after like 300 pharmacies, put all the procedures in place, etc. And then whilst I was doing all that, I was also working with Health Education England and King's College Hospital on a pilot project for newly qualified pharmacists. So the idea is newly qualified, they finish their come out university, and in their pre-reg year they do hospital, community and GP practice, and they become prescribers, and I was an educational supervisor for them. So essentially I was training these pharmacists to become super pharmacists. And then Harrods popped up again at the same time, and it all sort of snowballed from there. I also
it's amazing.
My consultancy company around then too. I think that was 2019, I believe. So yeah, it's been a journey. And then when did I do aesthetics? Oh my God, I feel like I've been in this space for too long now. I started aesthetics in 2024. I started it in 22. I knew I wanted to do aesthetics for a long time, but all these other projects kept popping up and I sort of put it on the back burner. Then I did my training in 22 and I was dabbling with, should I go work for a clinic? Should I set my own thing? And then I just threw myself in the deep end, set up a little company, did my own branding myself, properly starting injecting end of 22, 23. And I was doing it on my own, so I had no guidance. Whereas in a clinic, you have a doctor or another practitioner. And I remember saying, right, 23, the goal is to sort of get comfortable having your own business, because having a consultancy company as a business is completely different to having an aesthetics clinics business, because I am literally injector, stock person, manager, everything. And then I said 24, I'd like to have a central London space. And then earlier on this year, I signed a space in Marylebone. So yeah, that's how it all snowballed. Now I'm done. I know that was a very long story.
No, it was amazing. Because it's been such a fantastic journey. Like I think like from each of your like careers, Johnny, like our like CEO and founder of Lokia Locum, always talks about how he was attracted to pharmacy because of the entrepreneurial element of it. You know, like there's so much beyond working, you know, dispensing the medication and working with patients. And so like he actually worked as a hospital pharmacist and then locum on the side and then built Lokia Locum whenever he had that experience. So he often talks about how he never expected to own a software company, you know, as a graduated pharmacist, but like it's such an element in each of your stories, just how you like how diverse and adaptable the pharmacy degree is. Like it's incredible. So I think we sort of covered this here one. Everyone sort of talked about how their career has changed over time. And so yeah, I think this would be a good one maybe to share for anybody who is maybe a newly qualified pharmacist who doesn't really know maybe what next step to take. And I think there'll be some people on this call also who may have been in pharmacy for, you know, maybe a longer time and are maybe thinking of maybe taking the next step. So Sahar, like, could you share maybe like some top tips on like moving from one element of pharmacy maybe to a different career than their typical one?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the first tip that I would give is be open to opportunities, because when I first qualified, I thought I was going to be community pharmacy till I retired. That's all I knew. But it wasn't until I got headhunted to go work for an online pharmacy that, you know, that I knew nothing about that industry, about online pharmacy, no experience whatsoever. But I thought, do you know what, why not? Like, let's just give it a go. And sometimes you don't need to have all the knowledge of that career move or that role that you're looking at, but it's that willingness to learn and just grow and experience it. Find yourself a mentor as well, you know, in the industry that you maybe are looking to move into, and, you know, put the effort into, you know, learning about that industry and, you know, doing the experience and making sure that you really do enjoy it before you make that move. So for me, I worked in the online pharmacy industry and I used it as an opportunity to see if I actually liked it. And then when I got into it, I worked very closely with, you know, the head of GPHC, because online pharmacy was red hot for them at that time. And, you know, I would never have had that exposure or that opportunity to learn if I hadn't said yes to an opportunity that absolutely scared me. So say yes, be open to opportunities and put the work in as well, because when you move from one industry to the next, you kind of start at the beginning again. So like Serena had said, before she got to her pre-reg, she had already had several years of experience in community pharmacy. But when you move from one career to the end, you're kind of starting from the beginning. So be prepared to put the work in so that you can become an expert in that field. So there are some of my tips if you're thinking about moving.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Yasir, what about you?
Yeah, so really building on what Sahar said, because what tends to happen, particularly when you're thinking of career moves, that steep learning curve when you move into a new career can lead to a lot of hesitation. And if you're really truly passionate about a certain career path, and you're willing to do the work, but you're just scared of that process, or scared of going, scared of essentially feeling like you're going backwards. So if you feel very confident in one particular sector and you're moving to another sector, just like being in that position where you have to learn things from scratch, can that hesitation can just put people off forever. So if you're truly passionate about a certain career path, so for example, when I moved into academia, I was terrified of moving into a lecturer role, but just go for it and try your best, and there's a few things that I would say in that process. So in that process of, let's say you're moving to another sector, speak to people that work in that sector. You don't even, like, times have really changed where you've got platforms like LinkedIn, where you don't even have to know that individual in another sector. Before it was like who you know. Now it's like you can literally reach out. And I've had people reach out to me whilst I'm working at a hospital to say, I'm applying for this hospital role. What's it like to work there? And I really appreciate questions like that, because you're going to get the closest thing to an authentic response by just asking someone who's not on the panel that's working there, what's it like to work there? Or even asking individuals, is there any opportunities for me to spend some time there? Or if you're an expert in this particular field, do you have some time to share with me some tips about moving into this field? So there's a lot that you can learn from other people. And what I would say in that process is be okay with not getting a response or getting no's, because I get so many messages that I intend to respond to, and then it just gets swallowed up by other messages. So it doesn't necessarily mean that people don't want to respond to you. And if you really want to learn from that particular individual, message again. Like if they have a large following, just message again, and that may lead to you getting a response. So learn from others is what I would say.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Serena, what about you?
Well, as someone who's sort of, I don't want to say changed careers, I'd say I've pivoted a lot. So my goal has always kind of been the same. Like I've always wanted to be this great person, this great pharmacist who will help so many people and give back to their profession. So I feel like I've definitely done that, but I've done it, just gone off on different pathways. So definitely it can be very daunting when you're going from one industry to another. Just like yesterday said, sometimes you might not get a response. You might not get a no. I always say it's never a no. Sometimes it's I sort of see it as it's either there's a better plan out there for you, or not yet, or some other redirection. And I always say that if you will be out of your comfort zone. I remember when I went into aesthetics, because that was a huge jump, because that's not even really pharmacy anymore. That's like a complete spin-off. I always felt like in pharmacy, I'm a somebody. And I always used to say, I'm a somebody in pharmacy. I know so many things. I'm on panels. I'm in magazines, but in aesthetics, I'm a nobody. And essentially, you are sort of really uncomfortable and you're out of your comfort zone. But that's the only way you're actually going to grow. So if I look back on what I was like several years ago compared to now, it's a big transformation. I'd also say, so one definite thing is if you feel uncomfortable, that's a good thing, because you're going to learn new skills, you're going to grow, you're only going to get better. The other thing I'd say is, this is more from a hiring perspective. So if I'm hiring a locum pharmacist or a pharmacist in Harrods or anywhere else, even in the aesthetic sector, I would kind of think I'd want that person to demonstrate their transferable skills to me. Because any industry you work in, you will develop skills that can be transferred to another industry. And remember, if you're in a patient-facing role, always make sure you're expressing that patients are your first concern, and how whatever you learn in a hospital, you can transfer that to community and vice versa, or GP practice. So definitely demonstrate how you will be an asset to your new role, and also be willing to learn, put in the work. Unfortunately, I feel like in today's society, everyone wants to have everything sort of at the drop of a pin, not really work hard for it. But And there's this whole notion lately where it's like work smart, don't work hard. But I feel like you can only get to that level once you've put in your foundations and worked hard. So when you are qualified, it can be daunting to look at pharmacists such as us who've been qualified sort of 7 years plus and think, oh, wow, they've done so many things. But we were also in your position once. And we've only got here because we've made ourselves very uncomfortable, because we have actually worked hard. We haven't just worked smart and jumped through so many loopholes. We have worked really hard to get to these positions. So now we can work a bit smarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is so true. Like, I think like social media has a lot to answer for in terms of that their notion that you can just become this like top person so easily. So it takes years of dedication. But like, I think even like, I know what we're going to talk about social media in a later sort of part of the event. But like really leveraging LinkedIn and all them platforms, like you all, each of the three of you have amazing personal brands online. So that's definitely something I'd like to talk about a little bit more now in the event. So yeah, so we've sort of touched on, you know, a lot of advice already this evening, but if each of you could just give one piece of advice, like a golden nugget for every newly qualified person who is listening to this event either tonight or tomorrow or on YouTube later on, who is looking for some inspiration, what would it be? So Serena, what would yours be?
My top tip would be, and this is exactly what I did, best thing for a newly qualified pharmacist, my number one tip will be network. Network, because your network is actually your net worth. And if I didn't network when I first started as a newly qualified pharmacist, you're tired, you're doing long days in community, for example, that was myself. Sometimes you don't want to go to a meeting, like an LPC meeting, PCN meeting, whatever it was back then, at 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. and talking to everyone when that's all you've been doing the whole day. But if I didn't go to those, I wouldn't have met so many other people in the industry. I wouldn't have been as inspired. And because of those connections, every connection led to another connection. So network.
Yes, sorry, I think my internet patched out there. Sorry. Yes, no, absolutely. Network is going to be the soundbite tomorrow. That is going to be all over our social media. Yasir, what would your top tip of advice be?
Yeah, so I tend to do this particularly when I move into a different specialty in the hospital as well. So I still sort of do this now. You're going to face a lot of there's going to be a lot of times where you'll probably see a medication that's being used that you've never come across before. You're going to have interactions where you're thinking, I actually don't know much about this. And those situations that you come across in your day will make you realize that. Make a note of those things that you struggled with during the day, because you'll forget about them, and you'll only be reminded when you face those situations again, or you're asked about that medication, or that you're given that query again. So make a note of those questions and learn on the go. In the lift at the hospital, there's this little there was this little thing that was written about children, and I used this last year when I was speaking about it. It said that so I looked it up again, so I've took this piece for today. It says some studies show that 4-year-olds ask as many, Sahar would probably know this, ask as many as 300 questions a day, and a kid on average between the ages of 2 and 5 asks 40,000 questions in those years. And what tends to happen is after those years, the number of questions that they ask declines. And what tends to happen during those years is they exponentially learn about their surroundings and new things. And those situations where you want to ask a question with someone that's more experienced, but you're too shy to ask that question because you think it's a stupid question. Those are the situations where you could actually learn a lot. So even the first day when I was locuming as a pharmacist, the pharmacy that I did my pre-registration year in didn't supply methadone. So I read up on everything in relation to methadone. I asked staff there, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I've read up about methadone. I've never dispensed it before. How does your pharmacist normally dispense it? And they were really nice. And there will be situations where it won't be, probably won't be as nice, but you'll still learn. by just asking someone that has more experience than you. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and make sure you note down things that you struggle with so you can learn about them in your own time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a brilliant practical tip. We often say, like, to the locums also, like, whenever they, are on a shift, like, to speak and sort of ask support from, like, the full-time members of team too, who are there day in, day out, just for help and anything too. So, like, that thing that you hear in school all the time, like, no question is a stupid question. Firmly believe that there. Sahar, what would your golden bit of advice be for newly qualifieds?
So I think for me, this is something that, I did from the very beginning, was really understand what my standard, what my values are, as well as a pharmacist. So understanding how I show up, when I go to do a locum shift, how I, conduct myself, like how much effort I put into that shift, how much I support the team. Because actually what I see is a lot of bad practice sometimes is that, it's not your store, it's not your team. So, you maybe don't support trainee dispensers that are in your on shift just now. But when you actually get really clear on your standard, what actually happens is you build a really positive reputation of you as a pharmacist. And then when it comes to negotiating a higher rate, a new position, or having a recommendation to move to a different career, that becomes a lot easier because people will happily pay more. They'll happily have you on board for an opportunity that, maybe you're not fully qualified, but you've got the right attitude. Because like Yasser said, absolutely be the one learning stuff all the time, ask the questions. That anyone can do that. But actually no one can teach you how to have a better attitude or better standards. So these are just things that are very obvious, like, how, you're punctual, you're dressed well, you speak politely, you're kind and compassionate towards your patients. These are all very obvious things, but actually, when you do them and that is your minimum standard, you build a very strong foundation for you as a pharmacist and in your career, which then you can absolutely build on. So when the going does get tough, because it absolutely will, so don't be under any illusion that as a newly qualified pharmacist it's really easy and it's all chilled. There are going to be tough times in your career. You then have that resilience to then face those challenges. So just really reflect on what is your standard and what kind of reputation do you want to have when you're starting off.
Yeah, brilliant. That all feeds into, like, the idea of your personal brand, like in person, online, and you always want to make sure, like, your reputation goes before you in a really positive way. But in my time at Lokia Locum, I picked up from the locums and pharmacists that the pharmacy world is very small. So you always want to put your best foot forward whenever you're on shifts or working. So you never know who you're gonna meet, in the future. Or, like, in Serena's case, if the CEO is going to be in the car whenever you're on the phone to your friend.
Everyone always knows everyone, honestly. Like, I live in London, and when I've been at events in Birmingham, you get talking to one pharmacist and they end up knowing your boss, which is down in London, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a small way. So there's a lot of I'm sure everyone on this call is aware that in pharmacy there is obviously challenges, in terms of workloads. I think, like, maybe not having the support in place to really be able to carry out your role. So I'd like everyone to be sure, like, so newly qualified pharmacists are maybe aware. So what challenges should people be aware of before starting your career? And if you have any advice maybe for how best to handle them whenever you're so new to the pharmacy industry. Yasir, maybe if you want to start us off.
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned very quickly, particularly when I started out. So when I started out, I used to do long days at the hospital. That I had a lot of time, a lot more days off. So I used to do a lot of locum work. And one thing that's very important is the fact that in many cases, when you're in community pharmacy, the buck stops with you. And it's very difficult to have someone that's in a more senior position that you can refer to. So understanding that there is that accountability, and make sure you're comfortable with any situation that you're in. Goes back to that methadone example, or anything that you're doing for the first time. If you're doing something for the first time, ask people around you, and don't, like, those little moments where you may feel embarrassed, you're going to be thankful for that later, in case you made a mistake because of the fact that you're too shy to ask. So one of the challenges is you may be faced with situations or patients where you don't feel confident, and I'd say don't go ahead with giving advice in a situation or doing something that you're not confident in. And so just being honest with yourself and trying to work with the people around you, and don't feel embarrassed to ask for help from the people around you.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. I think it's so important just to make sure that you are protected in yourself and your registration and everything. That's a fantastic tip. So thank you. Sahar, what about you?
You just leading on from what Yasser just said. So I think it's absolutely okay to say that you don't know the answer, because there's going to be situations as you're starting off your career that you maybe don't, know the full information. But it's okay to say that I don't know the answer, but I'll go and find out. And then that's when you go and find out and you learn and come back, and that's so much better being fully transparent and honest with the person in front of you, rather than trying to make up something to sound smart and then you give the patient the wrong advice or not the correct advice. So that'd be one thing. The other thing that I think, and this is just something that I'm passionate about with the consultancy work that I do, is a lot of the governance and the safety of running a pharmacy. So when you're in community pharmacy or you're in as a locum, you're signing into that pharmacy for the day as responsible pharmacists. And you really need to understand, what does that mean? Like, you are responsible, like Yasser said, the buck lies with you. You're responsible for everything that happens and doesn't happen in that day. And you absolutely have to be comfortable that that pharmacy that you're signing in has, sufficient staff. There's, SOPs are being followed. There's nothing happening that shouldn't be happening. So it's having the confidence to say, actually, I'm not comfortable if, working with just one dispenser and it's a very, very busy pharmacy. That's not safe. What do you do in that situation? So these are some of the challenges that are going to happen in your career. I mean, in community pharmacy right now, that could be probably very likely day to day, these situations are happening. However, the challenge is for you to have that confidence to say, actually, I'm not happy with this, rather than just kind of going along with it just to make the day, your life easier, because either you don't know who to speak to in that situation or you don't want to cause a fuss. But really, really important that you need to protect your registration as well and speak up when things don't feel right. And usually as pharmacists, we have gut feelings, which are always correct. So go with your gut, and if something doesn't feel right, speak up.
Yeah, brilliant. That is brilliant advice. Thank you so much. And lastly, Serena, what would what do you think is the main challenge?
I think there's obviously, when we're sitting on this call today talking about how great our careers have been, etc. I think, remember, when you first qualify, you don't have to be this amazing pharmacist who's got 15 years of experience, who's done 10,000 things like I have. Because when I first qualified, I wasn't that person either. So I think as a newly qualified, just get your foundations sorted. So be comfortable in being a pharmacist, because that's a challenge in itself. As Sahar said, you're solely responsible, and similar to what Yasser said, for whole running and operation of a pharmacy. I remember my first shift, the first day of being on the register, I was a locum pharmacist in a 20,000 item pharmacy on a Saturday in a GP practice, and there's no one to call. I did call my pre-reg tutor once. But remember, just get comfortable with actually being a pharmacist. Always document things as well, I'd say, in the beginning stages. Whether you're not sure about, you're going to have hundreds of ethical dilemmas. And as a pharmacist, sometimes there's no wrong or right answer. It's just how you justify your decision. So remember, sometimes these things, not to scare anyone, they can creep up in a court of law several years later. And I remember I always had, back in those days, a pen and paper diary with my locum shifts, and anything that made me feel uncomfortable in that day, whether it's a conflict with another member of staff or a patient or something difficult, I would always just make a little note so I can remember in case anything happens later, and to justify my decision making. So similarly to what the guides have said, yes, you don't have to know the answer to everything, but as long as you can say, I can go find out the answer to this question. The other thing I'd say is it can be quite daunting when you first qualify because you're in your early to mid 20s. You're working with staff. This is in a community setting and in, I think, hospital settings as well, and just other sectors. You're working with people in the industry who've been there for 10 years, 20 years, etc. And naturally, you are going to be more senior than them compared to like a dispenser, etc. And sometimes that can cause a bit of conflict. Sometimes I've had experiences where people have come in and said, oh, you're newly qualified, you don't know what you're doing, etc. And there's different ways different pharmacies handle certain procedures. So I know some pharmacies, for example, the dispenser, which is not, shouldn't happen, by the way, the dispenser is having the CD keys. And it can be quite daunting for a newly qualified pharmacist to say, oh, no, I need the CD keys, considering they've never been in that pharmacy before, they've never been in that situation. Or if you are not comfortable, remember, you are the responsible pharmacist. Just because the locum pharmacist yesterday did something their way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's your neck on the line, it's your registration. So just get comfortable with being a pharmacist first. You don't have to do everything, you just have to justify, and you just have to know where to find out answers.
Yeah, absolutely. That is sage advice. Just make sure that you always cover your back to make sure that everything is okay. I like the record taking tip then to Serena. That there's a brilliant piece of advice. So this is quite a creative one. So if everybody then could imagine, so what do we think the future of pharmacy looks like? I always am amazed whenever we go to the pharmacy show in the past 2 or 3 years, and there's always something new in the pharmacy industry. So what do you guys think the future of pharmacy looks like? Sahar, what about you?
This is a really tricky one because I know what I would like the future to look like, and then there's also the answer of what it's probably going to look like. No, but I think it's important, even just when I reflect over the last 10 years or so in my career, like how much pharmacy has changed. So one thing we know for sure, it's going to keep changing. And we as pharmacists just have to get really good at adapting to change. I think the future of pharmacy is bright in the sense that pharmacists are being recognized for all the amazing work that we do. We're going to have, every pharmacist graduating will be a prescriber. That's why I was like a couple of years ago, I need to do my prescribing, otherwise I'm going to be left behind. So the fact that every pharmacist is going to become a prescriber really positions our industry to have a more clinical pathway and be at the forefront of healthcare. Because we are the first door into healthcare, we're the most accessible healthcare, in the sector out there. So I really do hope that actually, the world really understands and appreciates how much pharmacy do, and actually how much, healthcare would struggle if we didn't have our sector. So just be super proud that we're actually in this sector, and I'm so proud to be a pharmacist. But yeah, I think it's an exciting future, and I think for me as well, personally, my business, I'm excited about the digital aspect of pharmacy and really kind of modernizing pharmacy as well. So that's what I am really excited about, because it's going to happen. We're going to have to really embrace technology and get behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think digital pharmacy and the online pharmacy world is such an interesting concept, and all the work that you're doing is incredible, and the services that you're going to be able to offer. It's amazing, Sahar. So, Yusira, what about you? What do you think the future of pharmacy will hold?
Yeah. I was really struggling with this question because there's so much in relation to this question, but I think the most exciting aspect of pharmacy is the way that, so we did a lot of work at De Montfort University to essentially mold our curriculum to take into account the fact that all the new cohort of pharmacists will be prescribers. And that was really exciting for me because it means we really had a greater emphasis when it comes to assessment and diagnosis. which is something that I, as a pharmacist, and many pharmacists I know really struggle with. This is why the independent prescribing course was really intense for myself and a lot of the cohort, because you've very rarely been put in positions where you have to lead towards a diagnosis and you have to think about differential diagnosis. So having a better approach when it comes to teaching assessment and diagnosis, and that meaning that our neuro cohort has a much more clinical approach and a much more holistic approach when it comes to the care of patients is really exciting. But it does mean that naturally our roles and responsibilities will increase, and that comes with its challenges as well. I think a lot of us have had a baptism of fire with the Pharmacy First scheme, and you can see how challenging it can be, and it's a steep learning curve. But in the long run, I think these changes are exciting because you're going to have you're essentially going to be better equipped to manage patients in healthcare. So that's something that I'm really excited about.
Yes, absolutely. I think even with like initiatives like the Pharmacy First being launched earlier this year, people are now so aware of the role of a pharmacist and how vital, it is. I'm sure people do not like waiting for the GP appointments, and the fact that you're able to go to, your pharmacist for that advice, and then the prescription also is incredible. And I really hope people in the public like appreciate everything that you do, like, because it's such all the skills and everything that you gather from university and put into practice, like it's really, really incredible. Serena, what about you? What's your future of pharmacy look like? What do you think is going to be the next thing?
So I actually did an interview about 6 years ago with Harrods, and they asked me a very similar question. What do you think the future of healthcare would look like? And my answer back then is going to be my same answer now. I think it's definitely digital. And that's exactly what's happening. Everything's becoming more digitalized, similar to what Sahar said. That's what I would like to happen, and that's what I see happening. But then there are going to be a lot of challenges around that. And the challenges, I think, no matter what sector you're going to be in, is not just adapting to those changes, but actually agreeing with some of those changes. Sometimes I find pharmacy as a profession does get neglected compared to other sectors of healthcare, compared to GPs, dentists, nurses, etc. And I think it's nice that slowly, we are still quite behind, but slowly pharmacy is being recognised more as a profession. And I think slowly the public are adjusting a bit more and understanding more of what pharmacists and pharmacy does and how important it is in the healthcare puzzle. I know you said did a really good piece of content recently asking some of the public about what they think of pharmacy. And I was really impressed because the answers they gave were a lot better than what I thought was going to actually come out. So yeah, it's definitely going to be digital, but our roles are already changing, but I think they're going to drastically change even more. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be less community pharmacists, because we'll be expected to utilize our clinical skill set a bit more in order to help with like GP shortages and other crises within the NHS. So I think definitely, as much as it will become digital, we would have to definitely adapt and be willing to learn new skills.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is our last question here tonight, and I see we've got a little question that's came through that we'll get to just afterwards. Just conscious of time, but so I mentioned previously that all of you guys all have incredible personal brands online. You see your content going out to the public, doing the little interviews. So what advice do you have for newly qualified pharmacists who have been, working in the industry for years, who maybe want to get started on social media? And how do you leverage it to enhance your career? So, Yusira, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So, again, when anyone asks me advice with regards to this, or says the fact that they're quite nervous about making content or anything in relation to that, I say just essentially start small. First thing is make a LinkedIn and start connecting with people in industries that you're interested in sectors that you're interested in. That's a really good place to start. So when people talk about their brand, it's a really broad term. You don't really have to be on every social media channel. Just having a an active LinkedIn account and just communicating with the people that inspire you within the pharmacy profession or within medicine, for example, is a really good place to start. And just start engaging and interacting with other individuals is a good place to start. And then once you get to those positions, ask for help. So I get so many questions of, there's a question from someone on LinkedIn that was saying that they've started a new business and they want to start making content and they don't know where to start. And I'm more than happy to recommend software that I use for editing my content. And those, basically the help that's provided by other individuals really speeds up that process, because it took me weeks to find a software that really worked with me and that was easy to use when it comes to video editing. And I can share that very quickly, right? That speeds up that process a lot. So learn from people around you. But the first place I would say is make sure you have a nice looking LinkedIn account and start interacting with people that inspire you.
Brilliant. Great tip. Yasir, thank you so much. Sahar, what about you?
So, I mean, I absolutely do not have a massive following like Yasser or even Serena. So I've probably got the smallest following actually out of us three. However, what I would like to say, don't focus so much on the followers. Okay, focus more about the value that you want to add on your platform. Okay, if you're adding value, you will increase your engagement and the followers will come. Okay. I think it's always, for me, my take on my social media is about adding value and educating people, because then that helps them understand actually how much pharmacists do. Like, it's unreal how many people just still think that we stick a label on a box. Okay. So actually, one time I shared on my stories how I had a patient that came in with a really bad reaction. She went into anaphylactic shock. I had to administer EpiPen. It was like a huge thing. And I shared that on my social media, and the amount of messages I had were like about, oh my God, I didn't know that pharmacists, would be able to do stuff like that. So education is a big piece on social media, because that builds your people's trust within you. And then when you want to then explore further opportunities, you've already got a good kind of reputation on social media as well. And also, you like Yasser said, you don't have to be on every platform. Use the ones that you enjoy. So for me, it's LinkedIn and Instagram. So you're not going to find me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, and you're not going to find me much on TikTok. But I'll spend the time on the ones that I enjoy. And don't overthink it, because sometimes actually we can absolutely get caught up in stories in our head, like, I don't look right, I've not got the perfect setting, my makeup's not right, no one's going to want to listen to what I have to say. Just do it, because the fact that you even are posting, you're sharing things, and you're on social media, you're already stepping out your comfort zone. So get very clear on your message in terms of your social media. You want to almost have a niche. Like Yasser, you've got an incredible niche. Like you've got one field. You're not trying to sell courses or educate people on every different thing. It's very niche. It's for newly qualified, getting through the exam, and and that's where your expertise lies. So that's where people, when they are sitting looking for help to pass an exam, they will think of Micropharm, right? So things like that. So have a niche, and just get very clear on your message. And also, this is just what I find with social media. You have to kind of say the same thing over and over and over again for people. Like, I mean, I talk about gut health on my Instagram, and I will still, like, after 5 years, 6 years, still get people asking me, so what's that gut health thing you were talking about? And how does gut health? And I'm like, I talk about this every single day. How do you still not know? But yeah, that's just how social media is. You have to kind of constantly be drumming down your message, because it takes time for people to, for the penny to drop. So if you find that it's a bit slow getting your message out there, don't worry, just keep doing it and just stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is amazing advice. Thank you, Sahar. And lastly, Serena, what about you?
Similar to what Sahar and Yasser have said. So first it will be get a good LinkedIn profile. I did my LinkedIn way before I had my Instagram page. And to be honest, again, don't overthink it. So you could sit here and turn it into, before you start your page, whatever platform you enjoy, you could get really nitty gritty and say, oh, I want to specialize in XYZ. But if you're newly qualified and you're kind of finding your feet anyway, there's nothing that says your social media has to have a clear 10-year business plan, because it doesn't. My social media, I'll be honest, I'm quite calculated, and I did have a bit of a background plan, but how it's turned into, that wasn't my initial goal. So when I started my Instagram page, obviously I was in Harrods at the time, still am, but it's a big business entity and requires a lot of regulations in itself. So I actually had to get permission for my page. But the other thing I would say is, you are a pharmacist. So sometimes just be a bit careful what content you're putting out there, especially when it comes to from a regulatory point of view. Yes, you can put your lifestyle on there and fun things, etc. But when you're talking about medication, patients, and healthcare, just remember you can't give personalized medical advice over social media. And sometimes some healthcare professionals have put some controversial topics out there. So just remember, you are a pharmacist. You do have a professional registration. So be careful what you are putting on your social media, but just make it fun. Mine didn't have a goal. Yes, I knew later on down the line I wanted to do aesthetics, etc. But when I first did it, it was just to connect with other pharmacists, because I thought, you know what, there's loads of GP influencers and doctor influencers and dentists. There's not really many pharmacists at that time. I've done so many cool things in my career. I would love to just like meet other people, and that's how I sort of did my page. And I remember at the beginning I was trying to be very aesthetically pleasing, like, oh, my branding, my background has to be like this. I had a pattern going for my grid posts. Like, it had to be like a product, then one of me, and then a quote. And then halfway through I just dropped off it, and I was like, it's fine, it doesn't matter. And as the guys also said, don't focus so much on followers. The trick with social media is that it changes all the time. The algorithm changes. You aren't always in control. Remember, there's a whole meta universe happening, and they're going to change your algorithm all the time and what's going to push your engagement. But one thing I have learned is it's not always about the followers. It's actually about having good quality audience and giving out a good consistent message, and your engagement will just follow afterwards. There's no point. I've seen accounts that have like 50,000 followers and there's hardly any likes or comments or any interactions, and it hasn't changed or privileged their career in any way. Whereas such as like Sahar, she probably doesn't have as much followers as like Yasir. With me, I don't think I have that many either. But some of the connections I've built has got nothing to do with my follower count. That's just purely networking with people and the messages that I put out there.
Yes, no, 100%. I completely agree. And I'd like just to add here, like all of your content that each of you share online is like how like we started working together with like the team at Look Here Locum. You know, we can appreciate that pharmacy is quite a niche place. So whenever somebody is being so vocal online and sharing such amazing content, you know, the opportunities come like that we're able to deliver events like this here to, you know, we've got 44,000 locums on the platform, and we'll be sharing this video with each and every one of them. Do you know, like, you just don't know where the where you're going to be. So I appreciate all of you for sharing your social media content and for working with us too. So I think that brings us, everybody, to the end of our event tonight. So thank you so much for all of that amazing discussion. Yasir, I see that you're going back to some of the questions in the comments, so thank you very much. I think we've just got maybe time for one question, and then we're going to maybe just wrap up for this evening. But Halima has asked that she wants to specialise in respiratory remote or from Nottingham. Do you have any leads or ideas maybe where she could find a role like that? Anybody?
Rather than role, definitely if I could possibly look at arranging some time at the hospital, if that's possible. I work within respiratory, but that's in Leicester. But if you want to sort of develop some experience or learn more about what the roles look like within hospital in respiratory, then just drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Oh, Yasir, thank you so much. That is a very generous offer. Thank you very much. And again, thank you everyone for posting your questions, and Yasir for going back. You are very good. The last thing that I just want to end on, and then we definitely are wrapped up, is that if anybody on the call is a trainee pharmacist, please head to Look Here Locum's Instagram by scanning this QR code. we are giving away a £100 travel voucher to anyone who sat their GPHE exam last month, and I know the results are coming out now next week. So this is really our way of just giving a little treat for everyone who's worked so hard over the last 4 or 5 years. So please do scan the QR code if you are newly qualified, and you could be in with a chance of winning. So lastly, thank you so much, Zahar, Yasir, and Serena, and for everyone who joined us this evening. That was an incredible event. It was amazing. It was so insightful. And I look forward to our next one very much. So thank you so much, guys. And I hope you have a lovely Wednesday evening. And I will speak to you all very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank
No bother.
you.
Anytime. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.